Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Patience, and I decided to come to you guys with a little new one. So in this one, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Star Citizen, and I want to cover mining, and I want to cover a little bit about ship utilization when speaking of space and considering how to utilize that space. So I'm going to try and keep to the script as close to the books as possible, and you guys can tell me what you think about this. I'm going to try and bring out a few points as I go through as well. So ships need more room to accommodate for more crew. 500 rooms you would expect from the Polaris. I would actually expect a hell of a lot more than 500 rooms in the Polaris to accommodate for crew alone. But anyway, but 500 for crew alone I think would be a reasonable starting point. And 50 to 70 for the Carrack. So for the Carrack, about 50, 70, I would say 120 rooms for cargo, for crew. But 50 to 70 would be a good starting point. Ships should have prison holdings for crew and hostiles, medical rooms, health and safety measures, rooms for health and safety, probably even cleaning rooms where you go to get products in order to clean your ship, etc. Which means you probably want to employ a cleaner if you've got a ship, the size of a Carrack and the size of a Polaris. You're likely going to want cleaners as well. Also checking logs. There's a room, I can't remember the exact specific name, but where you would go to check logs in. So you'd go to give a little statistic readout about your day. I can't remember the name, but most people would have that on their ships as well, a place where you go and you just leave logs in the computer for people, your higher ups, to keep checks on you to make sure that you're mentally well, mentally stable, and that everything on the ship is running smoothly. Also for you to leave messages for your loved ones, etc, etc, etc. Also, a room for logging details, missions, and general thoughts. You'll want to have a cargo deck where no one else enters unless they have clearance. Most ships have cargo, or a cargo deck, but anyone can enter into that space at present moment in time. But usually you would give that task over to special personnel. Also, better missions like saving citizens from certain environmental disasters, and sometimes doing this within a certain amount of time. So we know that we have the 9 tails in the system, and currently there are buildings and places that are occupied with people. So you would expect them to at some stage step out of line, hold people hostage. You want to go and save these people, not armed people, but vulnerable people. There are other missions that you could probably employ, like natural disasters, where maybe you've gone to an oil rig or some sort of a rig, a mining rig, whether asteroid, planet side, or on the moon, and you find that a crew have been, caught in a bad devastation. Their ships are damaged, people are injured. You want to go there, you want to help the injured, you want to take logs, investigate, make sure everyone's safe, and clear them from the area as soon as possible. These are some missions that you're likely to encounter in space, and some of the missions that I would actually like to encounter and manage my darn self, rather than always taking a gun and running out there. Speaking of which, I think it's very poor, very unfortunate, and very sloppy of CIG to say that we respawn with our armors and our guns. Because if you get run over or you get injured in some sort of way and you have to go to hospital, if they cut you out of your clothes or they remove your clothes, it's damn near impossible for you to get your clothes back, guys, unless someone knows exactly where your clothes have been deposited. You are not going to get your clothes back, guys. So this is for the player to take it upon themselves to say, right, I like my attire, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insure my freaking attire. So you spend your riches. Everyone in the game at the moment is hella rich, so there's no reason to come back with your attire. So you take your well-earned riches and you insure your attire. So if you do end up dying at some stage, then you go back to the insurance desk or your locker and you just re-employ your goods, which means putting your goods right back on and going off and doing your little missions again. So I think that would actually be for the best, rather than saying, you know, we've come from a long way, guys. People's gone out their way to spend hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands on their rigs. At the moment, Star Citizen is very much like Call of Duty in space. There's not really much to it. You can, if you were to get all the Call of Duty games and bundle them together, it's possible for you to have a game very similar to Star Citizen. I would advise that a lot of players on Star Citizen go and play Call of Duty, and you will probably be surprised with how much fun you will actually have. So that's what I would personally advise, okay? I personally believe that Star Citizen should be a simulation kind of experience. When you get on the game, you're not necessarily playing a game, guys. You're experiencing life from a different perspective. This means making tasking game as realistic as possible. When you go to the hospital, I would like to personally literally learn how to surgically repair a person, you know, like doing organ transplant or doing donor transplant, or surgically removing or amputating and repairing or healing an individual the best I possibly can. This is just health and medical, rather than just pointing a gun at someone and healing them that way. I would rather actively learn the best I can, otherwise employ AI to surgically repair a teammate or my darn self, as realistic to real life as possible. You got to take into consideration, guys, when we sit down and we model ourselves characters, how far do we actually take this stuff? I myself, and I'm not necessarily a professional in this regard, I can sit down and model myself a character easy peasy. This is a professional game that many people have invested not just money but time into their lives. Is it really so hard to say that what you want to do is create next-gen experience gaming? That means you model not just the outer casing of a human. You model the tissue, you model the blood vessels, you model the muscles, you model the organs, and anything else about the human body that is as vital and potent or prominent as possible. This way we get as real to real life as possible. Just imagine, just the other day we had COVID. And COVID was a spiraling. It was going viral. It was getting out of control. Now, say to yourself, well, we got out of that situation with the skin of our necks, and we survived. Everything was not as bad as it seemed. Fortunately, thank God for that. Say another situation arises, same kind of pestilence situation, but this time it proves to be a lot worse. Hospitals are filled to the brim. You catch a cold or some sort of a symptom that you wish you never did. You want to be checked up. You want to be put under, the scalpel. You want to be repaired. but hospitals are filled up. Now, to repair, you just need a simple slice and dice and stitch, but no one really has to know how to do that. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could end up hurting someone, killing someone. But if you're taught the basics within a 3D application, then you can do simple basic tasks without having to use professional time, which means you could potentially free up time. If you're really skilled, and depending on how deep they go with education within certain 3D applications, you may be able to, it would be possible to take on mediocre tasks, a step above, like novice, I guess you would say. So obviously it would never really be recommended, but I'm just using this as an experience. This is why we would prefer a simulator over a game. I've spent years in my past sitting down playing games, and if I had dedicated my life to that, I can myself see how that would not have done me any positive for my life course. And that's why I would not like to invest my life, or the remainder of my life, on a game like Star Citizen. I would rather spend it on something very much so to a simulator. That way my loved ones around me are at a level of security, at least, when considering certain aspects, depending on how we want to look at it, depending on how deep we can go, and depending on if taking things that deep would be allowed. But anyway, I'll bring out a few more points here. You got to think about VR as well, guys. What is VR? Can you see yourself sitting down seriously playing VR in a game for hours and hours and hours on end every day? Or can you see yourself repeating this process via some sort of a simulator? You've got to remember it covers a lot of ground. There's many jobs out there that require not only time, but persistence and also experience. Now, there's many driving simulators out there that can actually really help you on the real streets of real life. Granted, a lot of these simulations need to take that a little bit more seriously, but when and if they ever do, then why would you not ever be able to do your driving test at home and then send it in to an instructor who then observes or oversees your little experience and then judges you on that and passes you whether you passed or not. These things are the future. I personally believe this is the future, not of gaming, but of life, guys. So if we're taking a slice of that and putting that into Star Citizen, then it's more than just a game. If you kind of look at it from a wider standpoint, so I don't want to be sitting down playing a game. So anyway, I could take it further. You got warehousing. A lot of content in game at the moment that covers warehousing, I think, is done very poorly. Like, for instance, if I get 4 crates and I get another 4 crate of SCU, and they're both stims, I can switch them up and post them to any which location I go to or want. In real life, that's impossible because everything is done by it's not barcode, but there's a code that is planted onto every item. So this serial code will direct this particular item. Even if they're identical, the serial code is most important, and it directs this item to that location, and this serial code directs this item. Because if you switch and mix and match, and you send them off to the correspond the different locations from what the serial code is reading, when the owner receives it on the other side, they look at the serial code, it does not match. Whether it's the same product inside or not, they send that back, or they put it into that region where it's like something like damaged goods or whatever. That's how it really goes. Now, it would come to my surprise when I was doing the warehousing work in Star Citizen, cargo hauling, and I checked the cargo, and I was like, oh, let me see, because I bought two different packages up at the same time, or two different jobs up at the same time, and I was like, oh, darn it, because I got them mixed up. I ended up having to send them both back down in the elevator so I could bring up one and then bring up the other, so I could put one on one side of the ship and one on the other side of the ship, but technically it doesn't matter. But I figured to myself, let me see if I can't find a solution. One of these crates must have a certain serial code on it, serial number. But when I checked, there was no serial number. So there's a lot of incidences like that within Star Citizen where there seems to be a lot of there's a lot of information missing from the game, and it makes it look bad because it seems as if there's not a lot of experience being implemented into the game. It makes it seem as if it's just a game. Now, granted, we are just in patches, and that could be an argument, but I would like to see a little more implementation and a little more commitment to the base level of the game, because if you start building and building and building and building, it's going to be hard to kind of implement certain things, because I personally believe otherwise what we will find is we'll have a lot of wipes in the game later on, which seemingly a lot of people don't like, me included, amidst that bunch of people. So I move on, and I've got how to make mining more fun. Currently, you got hand mining, you got vehicle mining, car mining, or rover mining, and you also have ship mining. Rover mining, I personally believe, is perfect, because you're in a rover. I believe, in ways I can't see how it could get any better than that. I believe that is perfect. The hand mining, I think, needs to be looked over a little bit more to make it a bit more immersive, a bit more fun, a bit more realistic. But the ship mining, I'm sorry, is absolutely junk. And I'm going to go ahead and explain how to make mining more fun. Car mining is perfect. Hand mining needs work, but I think ship mining needs to be more manual. Instead of the Ghostbusters effect as the main feature. The main feature instead should be finding a plot of soil or land, however you want to look at it, that has acres of minerals beneath the ground. You buy yourself a piston of sorts, a futuristic pole that starts out a meter long, but once you activate it, it extends to about 300 meters at maximum, because it's a small ship. On doing so, the nozzle also extends arms, so like a T-pose, as it were. And amidst these T-pose will be like barrels, each with spikes on them. Let's just envision this as an example. These spikes will begin spinning round, rotating round and round and round, and the T-pose arms will begin rotating in a 360-degree motion around and around and around. This means you're toiling the land beneath the earth. When you do that, it means that you're accumulating for yourself the ores beneath the ground that you require. Once you've done that with your ship, you then deposit the rest of your team, because you've created for yourself something like an underground cave. Your team are deposited onto the ground, and the vehicles alongside them. You send them down there, and they start mining out the rest of acres upon acres. It's a gigantic world we have. The stones. So you start mining the rest of what the ship couldn't, because it's only got a certain reach, a number of reach. If you don't do it this way, then what you do is you build yourself a rig. Most people ain't gonna have the money to start off with to get a gigantic rig unless they rent it, which means putting yourself into debt right at the beginning of the game, which I don't think personally is a great idea. But if you can guarantee your profits, then rent. You send your boys down there, you get a rig, and you start drilling like crazy for all those ores. What does this mean in the long run? If a player goes flying by and they see you drilling for ores, and they see that you found yourself a good plot, they may want to get involved. If they are not welcomed, there could be a crisis. You might find yourself war, you might find yourself harassment. You got to start calling for defense. You got to start paying other players to come defend your lot, which means you're going to have to start paying them a cut of your goods because you don't want to lose everything to these guys. It opens up room for so much. If you can see through that pinhole, organization now have a point. You're diminishing all of this when you create little spectrums on the ground and everyone's getting rich as crap. And I don't need an organization. I don't need an organization to buy a space station, but I am going to need someone to help me build that gigantic thing. But there's no difference between an organization or an individual. There's no difference between the UEE or two guys flying around in an Aurora. You don't need, there's no difference between a country and one single noob that's just bought the game yesterday, because we're already being taught how to make the most money in the shortest amount of time. So we need to tackle that, guys. Mining, the utilization of space on ships, economy and finance. And we want to stop jumping about we want all this, I want to be respawned in my armor and all this crap talk. If you want that, go and play Call of Duty. You will find the best playthrough there. This is not a typical game, guys. So these points are strong, the feelings are strong. And that's because you don't go investing a lot of money into something just to go playing Sonic the freaking Hedgehog. So please, guys, revise your stuff. It's your boy Patience. I hope you like what you be seasoning hers. And if you did, leave your likes, your thumbs, and your comments down below it. Over and out, guys.